Very good morning, students. I am your English teacher and today I will teach you English of class 7th. Today we start new chapter, chapter 4, Gulliver in the land of the giants. See, this chapter we do in 3 parts. So today we read this chapter in part 1. बच्चों, इस चैप्टर को हम 3 पार्ट्स में कंप्लीट करेंगे. फर्स्ट पार्ट में हम इस चैप्टर की रीडिंग करेंगे. तो आज हम इस चैप्टर की रीडिंग करते हैं. सो लेट्स स्टार्ट. चैप्टर 4, गुलिवर इन द लैंड ऑफ द giants. Gulliver's Travel is a famous book of adventure. It was written by Jonathan Swift. Gulliver had made many voyages in the sea and faced many uncommon situations. During one of his voyages, he reached the land of the giants. Here is an extract of his experience narrated in his own words. After staying in England with my wife and family for 2 months, I undertook my next sea voyage, which took me to the land of the giants called Brobdingen. A giant farmer discovered me and took me up on his palm. He was at least 60 feet high and I was just 6. After a close examination, he realized that I was a human being like him, only much smaller in size. He tried to speak to me in his language. The sound of his voice was like the sound of thunder, but I could not understand anything. I spoke in English in a loud voice. He carried me near his ears, but it was of no use. We could not understand each other's language. The farmer took out his handkerchief, doubled it and laid it on his palm. He put me on it and walked on. I couldn't stand due to the movement of his hand, so I lay at my full length. Then he covered me with the ends of his handkerchief and took me home. The farmer called his wife. She too was a giant woman like him. She was 60 feet high. He showed me to her. At first, she screamed and ran back frightened, as if seeing a spider or lizard. It took her husband a long time to remove her fear. She watched my behavior and slowly began to touch me and lift me. She behaved very kindly with me. It was lunchtime, so all the people in the family took their seat at the table. They were a small family. The farmer, his wife, 3 children, and an old grandmother. There was only one good dish of delicious food, as I could smell. It was on a huge plate of about 24 feet in diameter. The table was 30 feet high. The farmer put me on the table. I was terribly frightened and kept as far as I could from the edge of the table. The farmer's wife placed some food before me. I bowed low to the farmer and his wife and began to eat. All were delighted to see me eat. Then the mistress sent her maid to fetch a small medicine cup. It held about 3 gallons of drink. I lifted the cup in both hands with great difficulty. Then, in a most respectful manner, drank to their health. The drink tasted good. I spoke out words loudly in their praise. It made them all laugh heartily. I almost fainted with the laughing noise. Now the farmer made a sign for me to come to his side. As I walked, I tumbled against a crust of bread and fell flat. I got up at once and saw that the good people were all standing around. I took my hat, waved it over my head and bowed low 3 times. They were glad to see that I was not hurt. Turn the page. Just then, the youngest son of the farmer, a boy of 10, took me up by the legs and held me in the air. I was shaking all over with fear, but his father snatched me from him and scolded him for his bad manners. When we were halfway through the lunch, their pet cat jumped into the lap of the mistress. Hearing the purring noise of the cat, I turned my head. The animal was 3 times the size of an ox. Its frightening look made me trembling. I could not move out of fear. 3 dogs of the farmer also came into the room for the leftovers. One of them was a mastiff the size of 4 elephants and the 2 others greyhounds, somewhat taller than the mastiff, but not so big. When the lunch was almost over, a nurse came in with a year-old baby in her arms. The baby stretched his hand towards me. The mistress took me up and gave to him. The baby caught me by the middle and pushed my head in his mouth. I screamed so loudly that he became frightened and let me drop. The mistress held out her apron to save me from injury from falling down. After lunch, the farmer went back to his field. From his voice and gesture, I knew that he gave his wife instructions to take good care of me. They had a daughter about 12 years old. She was about 40 feet tall. She was an expert with her needle and made fine dresses for her dolls. She and her mother made a bed for me in the doll's cradle. They put me in the cradle and put the cradle on a hanging shelf for fear of rats. The rats were as large as mastiffs and much more nimble and fierce. Their tails were about 6 feet long. The farmer's daughter was very kind. She made clothes for me, but their clothes were coarse. She also washed my clothes. She taught me their language. When I pointed to something, she would tell me its name in her language. I repeated the sound 2 or 3 times. In a few days, I was able to ask for whatever I wanted. She gave me the name of Little Man. She looked after me with a lot of care. She never left my side as long as I was there. I called her the Little Nurse. So reading of this chapter is completed. You must read this chapter at least 2 times properly. So part 1 is completed. Thank you. Have a nice day.